So let's take a look now at another technique for reducing duplication in our Sass files, but also one that allows us to simplify our actual HTML and the number of classes that we apply to elements. So here we've just got 3 divs. Each div has the button class applied to indicate that it's a button, and then we further classify these buttons as a yes button, a no button, or a cancel button. So we're having to apply 2 CSS classes for each of these buttons to indicate that they're a yes, no, or cancel button. And we'll see in a moment how we can simplify this. If we run this, we can see our yes, no, and cancel button here. We've got a green yes, a red no, and this kind of grey cancel. And if we look at our Sass file, we can see we've got our button class with all of these basic styles applied. And here again, we're using a border radius vendor mixin. And then for each individual subclass of button, we've got yes, no, and cancel, each with the individual background colors set. So just as in C#, for example, we can inherit one class from another, we can also use inheritance in Sass. So to do this in Sass, we use the extend directive. And by doing this, we can change all of this CSS here to compile in such a way so that we can get rid of the individual buttons here and allow us just to specify yes, no, or cancel. So in this way, we're going to simplify our HTML and at the same time reduce its size by a small amount, which will mean it will download faster. So let's go ahead and start looking at the Sass file. So we're going to keep our button class here the same, but in our yes, no, and cancel classes here, we're going to go and inherit from our already defined button class. So to perform inheritance in Sass, we use the extend directive. And in this case, we're going to extend from the already defined button class. We're going to do this for the no button, and also for the cancel button. So before we save this, let's have a look at the compiled CSS we've got here. So we can see we've just got button, yes, no, and cancel, each as separate selectors. Let's go and save the changes that we've made here using the extend directive. And have a look at our CSS again now, and notice that there's a subtle change now. Because in our Sass, we've inherited yes, no, and cancel from this button class, when it gets compiled, it adds our yes, no, and cancel to the selector here. So what this means is in our HTML, anytime we add the yes, no, or cancel button, it's going to get either one of these 3 background colors, in addition to all of these other styles here. So this means that in our HTML here, we can actually go and get rid of the button class. Because, for example, if we use the no class on its own, no is selected here, so we'll get all of these styles, but also no is selected here, and we'll get this additional background color of red. So let's go and do this. And here's a handy tip in Visual Studio. If you want to select columns of values, put the cursor at the beginning here and then hold down Shift and Alt. And then we can use the right cursor arrow to start selecting across. And if we hit the down cursor arrow now, we can actually select a whole column here. So let's select all of these buttons and just hit delete. And now we remove all of the button classes from this HTML. So now we've just applied the yes, no, and cancel, which apply to the yes, no, and cancel classes here, and they also map up here. So we don't have to use this button class explicitly now in our HTML. And if we look at this in the browser, just refresh with Ctrl F5, and again we get our buttons that we started with, even though we've removed the button class in our HTML. So that's how we can use the extend directive to inherit styles and then optionally go and clean up our HTML. We can also chain inheritance. So let's have a look at this chaining SCSS file here. Here we've got this info class, This error class extends the info class, so it will get font size 18 and additionally add the color red. We then have this fatal error class, which extends error and adds bold. So this fatal error class will be bold, red, and 18 points, because we've got a chain of inheritance here. And if we have a look at our chaining.aspx markup here, we've just got 3 paragraphs, each with the info, error, and fatal error classes applied. So if we look at this in the browser, we can see our inheritance in use. The base information class here is inherited from by the error class here, which adds the color red property. And then the fatal error inherits from error and adds bold. So in this way, fatal inherits all of the properties from error and all of the properties from information.